Okay, hello, welcome. As you're coming in, we'd love to see in the chat if you just want to tell us where you're joining from. It'd be really nice to see. Let's see here. Um,
I'm going to do it too.
yeah.
Nicole, we're glad you're here, and yeah, take care of yourself.
Mhm.
Texas, this is awesome.
Yeah, you guys are coming from a lot of places. Let's see here. All right. All right, you guys. Well, this is probably a really good time for us to get started. Um, Let's see here. Got all our screens. Give us a little head nod if things are looking right on your end, where you can see Laurel and Jessica and slides. I think we're doing okay here. Okay. Nice. So many of you. This is so exciting. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start with just a little bit of intros and so you can get to know us. We've got an hour, so we're going to cruise through some really interesting and hopefully supportive things for you. You are joining us in our Resilience as Suicide Prevention course. We're hoping to do things a little differently for you. We know you all know how to safety plan or you know someone who can help you with that. So we're hoping to round out that information a little bit and get into like some like textury, like a little more human approach to some of these things, just to round out your skills and your approach. And hopefully it just feels really supportive. Um, Okay, let me introduce myself. I am Jessica Downs. I live on the western slope of Colorado in Grand Junction. I own and operate a practice there, Live Well Counseling Center, where we really specialize, and I specialize in working with high levels of complex trauma and dissociation. I use a lot of ego states, which you will see like threaded through all of this here today. You're going to leave with an ego states exercise that hopefully feels supportive. And yeah, and I do EMDR. That's the big one. EMDR and ego states. That's kind of how I do my work.
I'm Laurel Thornton. I'm licensed in Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and North Carolina. I primarily reside in West Virginia and work at a group practice that specializes in working with stress and trauma-based disorders. I fell in love with neuroscience my first semester of college and really have just been living this. How do I do more of that on a daily basis? And have been grateful to find EMDR and trauma therapy and working with neurodivergence and getting to create with new people. And so we just wanted to thank Next Therapist for having us um, and just like the energy that they bring, that they believe in all of you and what we do and want to make that easier for us and create more time and space for us to be able to practice and do the parts that we love and we're trained to do. So with that, Allison, we're so glad to have you with us, and thank you. We're looking forward to doing this together today.
Well, this is a special day for us. Thank you, Laurel and Jessica. Most of you probably do not know who we are. We are brand new, and we are going to change the way patients find the right therapist. I'm Allison Dunn. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Next Therapist. Our chief therapist wanted to be here today to say hello and introduce you to Next Therapist, but with the recent events surrounding the shooting at UVU, she's on campus today providing help for students. And honestly, that's the reason we built Next Therapist, to help patients find help faster. And gone are the days of directory listings. Patients don't want to scroll through the list of therapists and begin that back and forth phone call or email messaging that often results in them losing courage. They want to book directly when they're ready, probably late at night when things are the worst. That's what we built, a direct scheduling system that connects patients to you. You create your profile, you connect your existing calendar, and our platform manages the scheduling. No extra tools for you to log into or manage. Directory services, especially now with AI, make every therapist kind of sound the same. You write a little profile, AI polishes it, and suddenly everyone looks great and identical. But patients need to know what you're actually good at. And with us, you specialize. We ask you what you're really good at because we know no one's great at everything. And we built tools to help patients figure out the right fit. We've got more tools coming. Whether you're growing your practice, thinking about going out on your own, or just looking for a way to fill those last-minute cancellations, we're here to support you. With our waitlisting tools, patients who want to see you get notified automatically when you have an opening. You stay in control. You can decide whether you release just this week's appointments or maybe the entire next month. Maybe you're paying office staff right now to help you juggle this. Direct booking saves you money and keeps you in control and helps you capture those patients when they're ready to book before they lose courage and move on. We're offering the platform for free until the end of the year. We're local to Utah and we're building something big, and it's only focused on mental health. We are not a big online therapy provider. We are started by a therapist. We will never sell patient data. Think of us just as a new way for patients to find you. We will begin actively marketing to patients soon. Big things are ahead, and right now, the Founding Therapist Plan is the best deal you will ever see. This is specifically designed for therapists in Utah. If you are outside of Utah and you are interested, contact me. Let's talk. We'll figure something out. Because we were expanding fast. For most of you, for just 2 appointments, not 2 patients, 2 appointments will more than cover the cost. And if you don't get those 2 appointments by the end of next year, contact me and I'll refund your money. We're building more than a platform. We're building a community with opportunities for mentorship, education, and growth. And you'll continue to see free trainings, resources like this, and opportunities to grow your network and practice. You'll see us show up again and again to make a difference. We are so excited to partner with Iris in providing this training, and we are so excited for what's to come. We hope you'll join us.
Thanks, Allison. Awesome. You guys, this is good. It's so hard to find the right fit and to build these communities. And so we are in full support and we're super grateful. I think neither Laurel nor I introduced ourselves. We introduced ourselves as separate, but we are also co-founders along with Cassie Krajewski, who's here also, of Iris Training Collective. And it's all about building community and just seeing like all the things in you that are already so good and building those and bringing those forward as you develop your skills as a clinician. So thank you, Allison. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at our learning objectives for today. You've already seen these. I'm not going to read through them. I just want to quickly acknowledge we've got big things to do and the limitations of 1 hour. So by no means is this meant to be a comprehensive suicide prevention training. But just again, like I mentioned earlier, just to add to this backdrop of how you are entering into the conversation and into some of these really scary spaces when we're talking to our clients about some things that are really risky. We're really, really emphasizing 2 things here. The resilience in our client that we're trying to build, but kind of leveling this differential, and also attending to and developing your own resilience as you step into the space of managing some pretty hard stuff, right? You're already in that space. We're just hoping to add some stuff to that space because we all need a little attention, especially in times like these.
And we just want to recognize that you all gave your time today, but ultimately, I think we each came with a commitment that we notice there is an epidemic of deaths of despair and struggling right now in your state, but it doesn't matter if you are in Utah, Colorado, right? We are deeply connected to this and our collective community, our individual communities. And so, with that, we want to create more conversation about what resilience is. We talk a lot about what trauma is, but we believe that we all did this, signed up for this job, took this role because we believe that adapting well in the face of chronic or acute adverse experience is possible. That's how we're defining resilience today. And with that, we also wanted to name what connection is. And for us, this means a felt sense of safety and attuned responsiveness between people, and that it's this two-way embodied experience that regulates and helps us grow. This is not just familiar bonding. This goes past that. Connection is about what's possible when we feel safe with another human being, which opens this idea for what does that mean as a therapist? How does the self of a therapist stay central to this work so that we can continue to steward resilience and connection?
Yeah, we love to delve into self of the therapist work because you are a human having a very human experience, and this idea of this top-down model, like I have everything figured out, let me take you where you need to go. I mean, it's just false, right? We show up, there is transference, there is countertransference, there are our life experiences, there are the funky messages that we learn from grad school and supervisors. I know personally, and I've also had the opportunity to interact with so many people as an EMDR basic trainer. And I ask this, I'm like, what have you learned from your supervisors about how you connect with your clients? Or what did you learn in grad school? And consistently, it's like, you don't offer tissues. You let them have, like, you stay out of it. You never share about yourself. You never connect in this bi-directional, like Laurel said, these two-way embodied experience that ultimately is where there is depth of connection that is so central to developing resilience. And so we want to explore some of those messages with you today, some of the fears, the things that might be impacting doing or connecting resilience building work in the face of suicide, right? It's freaky. So thanks, Carrie. Yes. Okay. So that just pulls us right into this quote. I want to just mention, read this to you, and then I'll say a few things, but I love this quote that life as a therapist is a life of service in which we daily transcend our personal wishes and turn our gaze toward the needs and growth of the other. I would love to put wishes and fears and what originally put us into the therapy space. Like, why did you become a therapist? How did that change 5 years later? How did that change 10 years later? Right? Like these original things, the things that matter to us. Um, Life as a therapist requires us to kind of keep moving those to the side and redefine and renegotiate how we show up in the way that is most essential for the growth of the other. And what makes us the most comfortable to do that messy work that is demanded of us. We have to like reach outside that a little bit. And that's where resilience building in ourselves is central to being able to do these really scary parts of our work.
And you, maybe some of you ask, well, neuroscience and self of a therapist, how does this relate? But on this fundamental level, actually, what Jessica's sharing and what I hope to help connect you to is that the burnout prevention is built through connection. Our brains were created to be social organisms that needed other people, maybe other mammals. For those of you who love your dogs, you know this, but they were made to heal and grow and continue to learn through the act of extension past self, through the act of service and continuing to give so that we can receive. And so it's nice that when we kind of come back to the essence of this. The best way to stay in this field is actually to remind ourselves that we are made to connect and made to help, and that that keeps our brain well.
It's so human. It feels like it should be easy, but it also feels revolutionary, right? Um, so blending neuroscience, Laurel, I always say, like, it's your turn to talk neuroscience. I said that yesterday accidentally. And where I like to go and where these like complement each other, like she said, right? Is that ego states gives us a way to delve internally and do that meaning making that neuroscience points us toward, to internally connect to ourselves in ways that allow us to be more connecting externally. And it also allows us to intervene a little differently with our clients in a way that's super developmentally informed. When I'm working with a part of self that was established in childhood, I'm not making lists, I'm not explaining, I'm not creating a contract. I mean, I am because there's like liability around that, but I'm doing that, but I'm also looking at a child's neural networks and I'm thinking about what was so inescapable for that kid, right? How was there no way out? And what does this adult reach toward in my therapy sessions? What's needed and informed by brain development and neuroscience. And we can do that through the structuring and lens of ego states therapy.
So, as we start to stretch this topic a little bit, there are three main tenets that emerge in the research as being foundational for the neurobiological pieces needed for resilience, meaning those who like innately respond better to adapting to stress. These are some things that we see trending in an adaptive direction in them. And before I go into this, I just want to call out the point of this is to just help each of you, no matter what your comfort to neuroscience is, feel a little bit more connected to it because I really believe that solid neuroscience um, makes sense because you have a brain that you use and practice with. So find what feels comfortable, find what feels easy to hold on to and integrate. And that's what you're meant to take from today. I will, if you want to message me later and get into the nitty gritty, or we can, set a time to talk about this article that I based a lot of this on. I would love that. And if you take away that resilience is learning, bonding, and inspiration, perfect, right? That is the point. Neuroscience does not have to be so complex because we practice it daily as humans, as people in relationships, and as therapists. So the big things that you're going to hear, and we'll change the wording maybe a little bit, but it's plasticity. Neuroplasticity is very popular right now. It's getting talked about a lot. And what that is saying is that your brain wants to grow and learn and change. And just because we're getting older does not mean we're not capable of learning and growing, right? We see this. This is dementia prevention. This is despair prevention, right? When we get older, we find that if people still have social interactions, this gives them purpose. So again, we know this. And that is learning. Sociality. This is this idea that, like I said, resilience is forged in connection, healthy connection. So it is social, it is relational based, and the other piece to pull out of that is that it's co-regulation. We are set up to feel what other people feel, and that can be both alarming, that can be activating, but it can also be very regulating. And so mammals that have learned to regulate and attune to other nervous systems then innately can seek out that calming force and then one day provide it to someone else. Meaning making. When I first dug into this topic, this one resonated with me on this deep level because I felt it and then I had a way to call it out. And resilience is meaning making, meaning we can find some sort of bigger piece in the experience, in the purpose, why we are here, that bigger question. And so again, I call that inspiration. It's not telling you what you have to be inspired by, but resilient brains have something that makes them forward focused, gives them a reason to keep going. as we look at this, um, we'll start with this first one of plasticity, because honestly, if we're going to talk about brain science, it's good to start um, with that. Like on a fundamental level, I believe the brain was hardwired to survive and very well set up to adapt and heal. And that means learn, right? A new thing happens, I'm going to change how I look at that, right? I ate a new food. It was very spicy. Like, okay, I have learned something about this restaurant. It's not that I don't like the restaurant, it's that like the one on the little pepper scale is too much for me. I'm a zero at this restaurant. We're constantly doing this, right? And so we talk about the foundation of this is nice because it's actually that oxytocin supports plasticity. And for those of you who this is not new neuroscience, oxytocin is the bonding hormone. It's released in huge amounts in childbirth, breastfeeding, when you eat chocolate, and orgasm. It's a bonding hormone and it's also a regulating hormone. Um, I put in this about neuroplasticity being especially high after childbirth because I think it is one of the things that informs stress. Having kids is stressful. It's wonderful and it's stressful, but we're really well designed to learn, and our brains literally change at the rate of toddlerhood and adolescence after childbirth. For moms and dads, it doesn't matter the gender of the parent. We're seeing these huge shifts in plasticity, which those of you who have had children or adopted puppies or cats that require a ton of you, it demands change through stress, right? Stress is not the enemy. It's how we learn, adapt, and work with stress. And then I also just want you to think as we zoom out and think about how does neuroscience dictate practice? Stuckness, repetitiveness, inability to adapt is sort of the hallmark of not well, right? And so when we're thinking about how do we enter in this work that we do with our clients or the self of the therapist, we're checking for places that there's rigidity, where there isn't ability to wiggle or flex. And this is going to undermine resilience. So this is just a very simple way that we can start looking and interacting with how do we look for ways to just help things move a little bit. A shift in perspective is foundational and really inspires um, change, growth, resilience. And then the last is that plasticity reconnects us to the coherent sense of self. And this is again one of those bridges where I'm like, Jess and I are always saying the same thing.
Yeah, we're saying the
Yeah.
same thing because think about like I remember when I was a new clinician how I was just like I cannot study all the things because I need like my personal development in this silo and I need my professional development. I need these three categories of professional development like the skills and some support and right and I was like siloing all these things and that felt very fragmented to me and as I've spent a lot of time learning and um playing around with it, it starts to weave together and becomes more and more integrated, right? So all of this learning now feels like it's all one thing. And it feels like the sense I have now when I step into the therapy office is that my own spiritual process, my own educational process, my physical development, and all of these things, right? They're all wrapped into one thing. And it gives me courage to lean in a coherent way, kind of differently, right? So all of me can show up. And of course, like certain parts of me don't show up in the therapy room, but that's an agreement inside me, right? But it's this sense of like, I can show up more whole than I've ever done when I'm not splitting myself into these little containers.
And so, as we talk about plasticity and sort of this ability to move, we actually immediately are led to sociality or the connection piece. And this idea that connection underpins survival in all mammals is, again, something we know. You've seen this. Baby mammals are born super cute and super helpless, but that's by design. It's by design because big mammals are drawn to take care of and begin to nurture this in the next generation. And that is the really one of the most important foundations of beginning this biological process that becomes then a top-down regulatory process. So, um, regulation, so I think that term gets used a lot, but we're talking about nervous system regulation, which to me means connection between body and brain, right? How well are what we're feeling and sensing and what we're thinking and doing, how well are they able to communicate and work together? And there's nothing sort of simple about that process, but I will say we're designed to do it, right? So nervous system balance fosters a strong sense of self, healthier relationships, and our ability to find hope. So when we, as the therapist, can practice regulation, we then are more able to give regulation. We are then more able to recognize regulation. And then that brain works with us. And so that dance that we're cultivating in ourselves, nurturing in ourselves, then becomes something that we can then share with our clients. Again, when we were doing this project together, Jess said this. I'm like, it's going in the slide deck. Like resilience unfolds over time, moving from a simple biological response to more of this complex. And I'm like, yes. And she's like, that's how we develop our sense of self too, right? There's this parallel and ongoing lifelong work. And when we stay connected, that we haven't arrived at the end of our learning, we haven't gotten all the friends we could ever have, that we're meant to work through this over time. We realize that these blueprints, both for neurobiological health and wellness, and then also ego state work, really mirror each other. So with this, we're going to shift into, again, some application because Jess and I could talk to you as much as we want, but if we can't put it into practice, then this was just another training online, right? So we're going to just take a moment, and this is how I found and was mentored to integrate neuroscience into practice, which is that these how questions keep us flexible, keep us fluid, right? They're non-directional. They're hopefully set up in a way that there isn't one right answer. And so these are some that came up as I think about practicing this with my clients is how can I foster connection in the presence of suicidality, right? So I'm not asking someone to change. I'm getting really curious of how do I start that interconnected dynamic, curiosity in me for plasticity, and then the welcoming in from them. How can we stay curious with and about our clients this whole time? So I like to remind myself I don't know how someone's going to show up until I see them that day. So I can have a plan, which is good, a template, a framework, but then I have to really have enough humility that I don't know the right answer for them. I had an idea based on how they showed up last week, but today they deserve me to be very present and to see where they're at with the topic. How can I orient to time, space, and people? This is one of the keys in neuroscience, time orientation, person orientation. How are they showing up and how can I help settle them and orient them to the present moment? The reality that I'm in my office with pink flowers and that, Jess is in a whiteboard. Oh, Jess, that's a different office. I don't know where you are. Your clients probably notice that you have a different background. Can you settle their nervous system? Yes. I am great noticing. I'm using a friend's office today, and then how can we find and make space for multiple perspectives? This question I really like because it creates space for the higher meaning that we talked about, purpose, right? Like, how does this moment or this struggle fit in with what you saw being possible for your life? It also can create the perspective of, I just have no friends here. I've moved to college and nobody likes me. No, I don't have I don't belong anymore. Right. And even in that statement, there's the before and the now. There's multiple perspectives that we can pull in, or even just the plasticity of like learning. So these kind of open questions create space, and we're going to do a little activity here that Jess is going to guide us through to practice.
Yeah, I'm actually going to have us skip real fast. Laurel, will you move us to the therapist slide for a minute on 12?
This one?
So yeah. So I'm going to just kind of take us here. I think this is actually a really nice place to go. So thinking about how we can step into that space, foster connection between us. I think the first question is what gets in the way of that? Because you're all very good at connecting. I would put my life on this idea that you are really empathetic and that you know, like you really care about the people who are in your office. And I would say that you probably are delightful in a conversation. I wish I could be having a conversation with all of you, right? But when we're really thinking about this depth of connection, especially in the face of some scary things, what are some of the things that create the need to maybe flee in those moments or add distance or say like I'm going to get out my Columbia rating scale, and then all of a sudden we have like me and you and we're separate and that like closeness is gone. So one of the things that I believe in on every level of me and this like cohesive therapist, like spiritual, whatever I am, right? Whatever version of myself I am now. But I really lean into this idea that when there is something we're afraid of, or something that scares us, it kind of hangs out in the corners and drives our behavior, right? Drives like, here's my rating scale, or here's my safety plan. I'm going to turn this way and write it. Did you? When will you? How can you put? Like, here's a song, right? And we safety plan with a little bit of a distance sometimes. I've seen this in myself as a therapist. I've seen this in people I supervise, consult with. It's just human. It's freaking scary. Suicide is scary. We all know that. So let's see if we can create a little space just by naming some things. So for a minute, I want to ask this question. What stands in the way of deeper connection when it comes to themes of suicidality? So I'm going to invite you for just a second. I'm not going to call anybody out, that you can engage this however you like. But just for a moment, if you can bring up an experience where one of your clients was exhibiting some pretty high risk behaviors. Maybe they were saying they were suicidal. Maybe they were self-harming in a way that was potentially lethal, right? Just bring up that client. I know they exist for probably almost all of us, or if not all of us. And if you can kind of collect for a moment that memory, the moment before you acted, before you intervened, and just for a second, kind of bring to mind the moment before, oh, yes, I'll repeat it one more time. If you can bring to mind the moment before you intervened with a client that was suicidal or exhibiting some high risk behavior, like potentially lethal self-harm. Just kind of hold that moment in your mind. Notice any images that are there, like any kind of how you see that memory. Notice any thoughts. Notice your emotions that kind of start to bubble up, and notice your body. Like, does it tense? Does it brace? Does it sink? What happens there? And as you hold that moment, I'm going to invite you just to explore, what are the fears? What stories are showing up? What messages are showing up? What flash forward into the future outcome that is really like, oh, that is too much? Maybe what from your past is getting dredged up? Like, ooh, I can't deal with that. And for a moment, let's just face it together. I will tell you mine. And then if you want to put in the chat a couple words, because connection is what we're all about here. And it's nice to not be alone in these. It brings up for me a long history of performing, of achieving, of doing it right. And yes, of course, there's like the fear of a lost life, but like, what does this mean about me as a therapist if this actually happens, right? So those are some of the little threads that kind of pull up for me. Yeah, Eduardo, liability, freaking liability. I know. Yeah. Yeah, if you can throw a few things in the chat, I'm just going to name a few of them. I won't say your names, and you can do it anonymously as well, but I'm just going to name some of them. and see where you resonate. Liability. I'm scared I won't be able to convince them to want to stay. Like I'm scared about my abilities. My time working in the crisis center and being anxious again to make sure I'm doing it right. Yes. Like, what if I'm doing this wrong? What if I get it wrong? What does this look like? I'll just stick to the form that tells me step by step. Lack of control, hyper focusing on what if I say the wrong thing, the reality that regardless of my effort, people will do what they choose. Yeah, that is a real reality, right? That is real. Having to have the right answers or response, failing them, liability, how I would ever cope if one of my clients took their lives. One of my mentors who has been in the field a very long time, she's like, it is not a question of if you will have a client die by suicide, it's when, right? And I mean, that's not 100% true, but this is a reality of the very, very like gritty work that we sometimes do. Yeah. Liability and time crunch of session, anxious about the results. Can I get help if I need it? Fear. Okay, you guys, yes. I'm just putting you all from my view. I'm adding you as a gallery so I can look at your faces. Raise your hand if you see something that it feels like, yeah, same, right? Yeah, same. We're all here. Mhm. Yeah, we're all a little scared. And it looks like, will I make it worse? Will I fail them? What if I don't do it right? What if, like, I don't have enough time? What if I say the wrong thing? What if I push them further and they actually do the thing, right? We are holding the most delicate, kind of fragile space there. And so it's interesting, right, that the fear, well, let me ask a little follow-up, and I'm going to ask you to be a little bit vulnerable here. That when these fears come up, what do you do? How do you cope with it? Do you go straight to your scale and we're like, oh, well, I'm just gonna here, right? And I don't judge you for that. Like that in terms of liability, that is a safety measure, right? But what do you notice in you to kind of make that fear and anxiety stop? If you feel willing to say in the chat, I would love to see that. I see consultation. Yeah, that's appropriate, right? Like find a friend who can help you out. Yeah, but in the moment, right? Like what I don't know, because that is an uncomfortable feeling to feel. Okay. So we can take a deep breath. Yeah. You start grounding, counting, deep breathing. Okay, so we have some highly adaptive things here. I will also say sometimes I'm just like, shit. Like, uh, and like this is a really big, scary space, and regulating in the face of potentially imminent death is actually really challenging to do. And so how do we like what takes us out of connection? And what we hope to build with you today is a way to step deeper into connection, because that is what we know fosters and facilitates deeper resilience. Okay.
And
Thank you for doing that thank you for engaging that way. It's lovely.
and this exercise, I think, is a beautiful example about how like meaning making is exclusively human and we search for it, right? You came to this training to seek out connection and guidance for a topic that is scary. And what we see in the literature and our collective human history is that resilience is tied to personal meaning, wisdom, storytelling, increased self awareness can mitigate the adverse consequences of this stuff. And so, again, I'm saying this out loud purposely because you just demonstrated it with us. And that's beautiful. This gives us hope, right? That generosity fosters resilience. As we show up to give and help, this pads our own resilience and shares hope with other people.
Okay. We're gonna read this to you and we'll kind of move along. Okay. So in this lens of resilience and meaning making, we are built to connect. We're built to be in families, communities, tribes. We know that we're wired for connection, right? But that same wiring that brings us together can also be like, ooh, this is different, and to push out of that safety and that circle when something feels dangerous, right? And that can be so subconscious. I doubt I'm dealing with a bunch of mean girls here. I don't think that's what's happening, right? None of you are adolescents, maybe some in your adolescent brain, like at the end of it, but really this is like deeply biological to be like, this is scary and this is dangerous. I'm gonna just wedge a little space between me and you and make you other. Right. And so resilience means choosing empathy. It's like an override, right? To choose empathy and inclusion over isolation. To say, I'm going to bring you in, I'm going to ask you really interesting, difficult questions. And I want to understand why dying is the right choice for you, right? Why you perceive that as the thing that will solve all of this. I'm going to bring you in, okay? Instead of isolating you. As therapists, we invite you to continue to deeply embody connection instead of judgment, or we can accidentally reinforce that very sense of being an outsider that drives despair. I had a client just this week who has some super complex presentation. She has DID and she's highly suicidal. Every week I'm like, let's see what's going to happen here, right? And she got so frustrated. She's like, I am embodying what I'm teaching here today, but she's had a number of therapists over the years who have immediately called the police when she said she was suicidal, have like, and I don't blame them for that, right? That she says, I just need to have a hardcore conversation about why I want to die. And I was like, let's go. I can do that with you, right? And we did. We had a hardcore conversation, right? And in her words. And so leaning in, overriding that biological need to other. Okay. This little piece here, I just want to orient to a little bit of safety. Okay. Somebody did this for us in a recent conference. I was like, that was brilliant. But how many people, if you can raise your hand, how many people do you know or have been sued or pursued legally because you had a client die? Does anybody know anyone who that's actually happened to? I don't see a lot of hands. I am flipping through and there are a lot of you here, but I see like no hands. Okay. I bring that up because one of the top fears that we saw in the chat was, well, liability, right? It is not that that is not a real thing. Like we know, like we take precautions in the same way. Like we know it's very unlikely I'm going to get struck by lightning, but I am not going out with like tinfoil on my head or an umbrella into a field during a lightning storm and be like, this is unlikely. Let's test it, right? I am mindful and aware of those things, and I do those things to keep myself legally safe, but also let me just orient to the unlikelihood of that being a thing in your life. Okay. So I just want to kind of like help your brain start to create look at me talking neuroscience, Laurel, start to create a new prediction, right? A new way of like bring this into your understanding and then let it adjust what happens on the outside. Okay. In your offices.
And this is a beautiful segue because examining our own prediction errors or prediction bias is a wonderful practice, right? You learned that. Someone probably who you really trusted told you to be careful and worry about this thing, that. And I think we can all, like, when we're starting out, like, stricter boundaries in counseling is designed to help keep people safe. But I don't believe they were designed to be permanently rigid, right? Like, and so we see this in our clients too. And the invitation to keep with a learning, curious, connection mindset is this shift in language to, is it adaptive or maladaptive, right? We're not here to judge the coping behavior, right? That's that otherness. Like, oh, you did that. That's scary. It's, that is an attempt at a solution, right? And I see that. And if it doesn't make sense to us, Jess always says, like, 100% this makes sense. It just doesn't maybe make sense to the two of us yet, right? But it does to your brain because your brain got you here to this session. So your brain is keeping you alive, which is its number one job. I think you've probably heard this. The number one job of your brain is not to make you happy. It's to keep you alive. And so by simply the act of someone showing up to session, that is worth recognizing. That is worth celebrating because that is its first job and it's done it well. Now we get to work together to figure out what is it trying to tell us? How is it doing the job? And is it possible to offer a more adaptive, less scary way to cope with this situation?
This is a slide we include in a lot of our trainings. It's really illustrative of what Laurel's saying. So AIP is a model that underlies EMDR, and we like love AIP. Okay, it's very strengths-based, very humane. But this image, okay. So Carl Menninger is an American psychiatrist, and he says, I have used the figure of a fish caught on a hook. His gyrations must look peculiar to other fish that don't understand the circumstances. But his splashes are not his affliction, they are his effort to get rid of his affliction. So I always picture like this little school of fish looking up and they're like, what is that guy doing? Like splashing around the surface? Like, why can't he just come back in the water with us? This is where it's safe. Right? Why is he moving around like that? That's so weird. That's so bad, or that's dangerous. What's he doing? And so it's very easy to confuse, like this paints this picture of how easy it is to confuse a symptom with the actual problem. So when someone is saying, I'm suicidal, what is that a solution to? Where is the hook actually? Where is the wound that is driving this, like, I should probably die as my symptom?
And we recognize that this can be a scary space to step into of really embracing this idea as suicide as a potential logical solution to deep despair, pain, and so we just wanted to name a few of the big ones we see. Jess and I do a lot of complex trauma work. So for those of you who are in that space or think like suicidality is more, I would say the vast majority, if not all of my clients, and I see Jess nodding, that have experienced complex trauma have a suicidal part, or this is a thought, this is a place they have been in. And so these are the things that we really see making that voice that views and is almost advocating for suicide as this logical solution to this current state that make it louder. And that's insomnia. If you're not screening for insomnia in your clients, please start. It leads to there is no positive health outcomes when you are not sleeping enough. And the scariest ones are psychosis, suicidality, and even like increased risk of stroke and some physical stuff. So that's one. Deep despair and isolation. When people have not had any positive social interaction, these voices get louder. Um, Grief and loss over past self, and particularly moral injury. For those of you who work with veteran first responder populations, this is one we want to screen for and take some breaths, put your feet on the ground and listen, ask, sit in that space because there's a lot of pain there. And then loss of control and developmental powerlessness, right? Um, Taking your life can be a statement of power. And we don't want that, but we need to recognize that there might be a part that has this, like, I was always trapped and now I have this space and there is room where I can acquire things and make my own decisions. And again, we want to listen, hold space, get curious with this before we decide how we want to respond.
I want to add to that this idea. It's a thing that we see in all of the suicide prevention organizations, like all of the data. They tell parents and friends that talking about and asking about suicide has no evidence of creating that thought or encouraging someone to actually complete suicide. And I want to reiterate the same for you. So doing this work of like, tell me, what problem does this solve for you? Right. And I think about little kids, like if I am working with a client who has a 5-year-old part And you think about a 5-year-old, like what options do they have to be able to survive a hostile, harmful environment? They don't. Can you run away from the adults in your life? No, you'll get returned. Can you fight back? No, your body is too little. So, what option do you have? And what little connection do we make? Well, there's one way I can solve this, right? I'm deeply, very accurately powerless when I'm little. And those networks, they don't just go away. We don't grow out of those experiences. They stay. And when they get activated, right? When they become very present and powerlessness becomes really alive in my present day life, it is easy to go back to those same strategies of like, I know how to solve this. There is one way out, and that's dying. Right? This is my way out. So I want to share this quote here. If we can go back one, Laurel, just real quick. This one, we all know Yalom. This is old school, right? Like, this is what I learned in grad school. But I love this quote. The physicality of death destroys us, like quite literally destroys the body, but the idea may save us. And so the nudge and the deepest encouragement we have to give you is to be courageous and ask that question. What are these thoughts, these fantasies, this ideation? What is this a solution to? And how can we then do our work around that wound, that fish's hook, right? Rather than like, okay, I mean, in addition to, can we remove these things from your house? Can you call, like these, can you create a playlist? Like all these really beautiful, but very behavioral interventions to like, can we get a little closer to where the wound actually is and do that courageous connecting work of, tell me about it. I'm here, right?
And this idea that any of that actually are invitations to the brain and the nervous system to get unstuck, right? It might still be in a lot of stuff that's deep and scary and not like, I don't want to be there, but any movement gives us a chance to pop on some of those more future positive connection parts of the brain, right? And so that is what that's a beautiful example of, is giving the brain a chance to do the work of there is another option. There is the possibility for movement and connection in a more adaptive way. And at the center of how Jess and I show up to our work is that we really respect that the brain is only capable of learning and adaptive, healthy connection when it feels safe enough. And so this is another really important piece of that our work rests on this. That healing unfolds when systems relationally, institutionally, and internally have sufficient safety. Is there anything you want to add here, Jess, to this one?
That's perfect. Yeah.
And so as we round out our time together, we thought we would show you some ways that I come from a more very practical neuroscience lens for cultivating safety, which creates the space for plasticity, connection, and meaning. And then Jess will name a way that she does really, again, the same thing, but just from a different angle. And so orienting to safety is an activity that shows up in various forms. In polyvagal theory, in EMDR, somatic experiencing. It's not unique to any one modality, but it uses the actual orienting response of our brains, which is eye-based. When humans stood up on 2 feet, our like visual sense became our dominant sense versus olfaction. So for us, orienting is very eye dependent. And you can just practice this now. I want you to like kind of get your feet on the ground and look at all the corners of your space. So leave the screen for a second. And just notice, like, I know I take a breath. Every time I do this, I take a big breath, right? And we're looking, is anything in our immediate space going to cause imminent threat of death or physical harm? Safety is a physical assessment. It gets emotional and it can be psychological and even spiritual, but technically our brains are really designed to orient to physical threat. And some of you got up. If this is in your office, you'd like maybe close the door or you'd talk to your client. Like I have a painting in my office that one of my clients is like, nope. And so when we do orienting, the painting has to come down. And it's an abstract painting, by the way. It's black and gold. I love it. It's a hard no for them. So, and then we're going to start working up our capacity to settle in and stay with. It's okay to feel safe when I am safe, and I am safe now. And so if you want to try this, you're all on mute. Just say those words to yourself and then notice what it's like to hear them. It's okay to feel safe when I am safe, and I am safe now. And if anyone wants to share, you're welcome to, but this is pretty powerful. And one of the caveats to this, because again, I get a lot of arguments to this, and that's how we stretch this. And it's not always this fast. But I say, I never want you to feel safe when you're not safe. I trust your brain to keep you alive and get you out of somewhere that you don't need to be. And that's why we look around and we're like, in this space, is there anything that is imminently going to cause you death or extreme physical harm? No. Okay, so for this 1 second, can you let that statement be true and can you let it settle? And we will do other work. Again, if you're a CBT therapist, there's ways to bring in mindfulness exercises, breath work, but that's the essence. Can we get them to recognize and hold that to be true? And this becomes the foundation for our extended work together.
Nice. Okay, I'm going to show you real quick. You have this in your learner account in Kajabi. So it's bigger than I have time to go over right now, but I want to just give you, if you don't do parts work, IFS or ego states, or there are a few models, this is a nice guide to kind of tapping into what part of you wants to die. Because again, you came to therapy today, so there is a part of you that does not want to die. Or you wouldn't have come, you would have just died, right? And so there is a part that's keeping you alive at some level. So this is spotlighting. I've given you a few tips for success to just talk in concrete language, because typically we're working with younger parts. And if we get too intellectual, we'll just activate our adult parts, and it's the younger parts that are typically holding the drive for that. We have a little starting point. I have some scripts for you. But this is something you can use in couples therapy, and like, this thing happened to me. I don't know why I'm so activated. And then with very specifically with suicidal clients, we might say, can we connect with the most recent moment where your distress felt the highest, right? Or the moment where you felt the most suicidal? Or can we connect with the part of you that is wanting to die, that's driving those thoughts? Okay. These are some questions to kind of guide you and just prompt you to be deeply curious about what is coming up. Are there any emotions that go with the sensations in your body? Are there any words that go with that sensation? Help. There's no way out, right? I don't know where to go. Lost. I don't know. I don't know what your client will say. Okay. How old is that part of you? And typically someone will say like 5, 6, little, and I'll just say, oh, they're little. Okay. Right. We visualize the part, and I wrote you out some questions to do that. You connect with the most present day self with the younger part, the part that came to therapy today, the part that doesn't want to die. Who or what is doing that? And here's a way to connect with that younger part that may not feel so wanting to live. And then we can do a little work with that part. Then we settle that part by tucking in, and then we can do some closure. But this is a good place to do some safety planning, to do some nurturing, to do some developmentally appropriate work with whatever part might be driving some of that suicidality. So if this appeals to you, then download it, play around with it. You can email me and ask me questions about it. That it's just a kind of an easy entry into doing a little bit of parts work. Oh, I got some drawings.
I know I
Okay.
don't know how to get rid of them.
It looks lovely. It's like a kite string. It's cute. Um, This is wrapping up our hour together. It has been lovely. You're all like, thank you for being vulnerable, for showing up. What a treat for us to see all your faces here. You're doing good work and sacred work, and we believe in you. And we're excited to see you more. And we really want to thank Next Therapist for believing in us and hosting us. They are an excellent organization. We love the people there at Next Therapist. And so be in touch with them, sign up, build that community. And then if you want to stay in touch with Iris, these are the places you can go. We have this excellent podcast called Therapist. So if that resonates with you, let's go. Okay. All right, folks, you take care and you'll get the recording of this as well, just around the corner. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, the chat
Thank
was
you.
wonderful. It helps us know that you're staying connected.
Yeah. Okay.
How can we get access to the spotlighting handout?
It's in your learner account in Kajabi. So where do you know where I'm talking about when I say that? Yeah. So it's just a download in there. It's already been given to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for asking. Thanks for showing up.
Yeah, if anyone else has questions.
Mhm.
Thanks so much. It's wonderful.
Welcome. You have CEUs in Utah for this. So somebody asked about CEUs.
Oh.
And if your state is kind, it'll count them, but that's a state.
Colorado will count them. Mhm.
West Virginia will count them. Ohio, I'm sorry. I feel like we had one Ohio. They're very strict.
You have, you'll get a certificate also populated into your Kajabi, so you can store that for your license renewal and if it works for your state. Mhm.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, folks, any last questions? All right, you feel free to sign off and thank you again. It's been so lovely to see all of you. Take care. Good luck out there.